We are live.
Hello.
Hello. Carla is going to be here very soon. Her computer just restarted, which is like apparently the protocol before live shows. Computers really like to just restart right before live shows.
That happened to me too.
Yeah. Una said that has happened to him as well. So yeah, apparently it's just the thing. But this live show is about Lent. It's about Charles Spurgeon. I really wanted to just read some Spurgeon, and I asked a few people if they wanted to join me, and they said yes. So this was a really good time for me. I found it a really refreshing time. We were just talking before we started, and it sounds like it was not as refreshing for everybody, which I'm bummed about. But I'm really glad that we're all here and we can talk. And yeah, so please tell us in the chat if you enjoyed some Charles Spurgeon or if you have any answers to these questions that we're going to be talking about. So what I really wanted to start with was, have you guys had any past experiences with Lent or with Spurgeon? Hi, Garrett. Because I have not read any Spurgeon before, but I have done Lent before. So it was.
I didn't realize until recently, like in the last several years, that Lent was not just a Catholic thing. So I don't have a ton of experience with Lent, and I'm also not super good at giving up stuff. Like I'm not great at that because I'm like, what? But I need that. So, and I think it violates the spirit if I'm like, I'm gonna give up something I'm not gonna use. You know, I'm gonna give up eating vegetables. Well, I don't eat vegetables, so that's easy. So I get it. I've done like intermittent fasting before, which is similar, just not over an entire month. But Spurgeon, I have plenty of experience with. I love Spurgeon. I've discovered Spurgeon when I began my quest to read and annotate my Bible, like 5 years, starting 2015 or so, when I got my current Bible I have. I'm still not done. I'm stuck in Hosea. It takes you forever to get through Psalms if you're going like one by one. Oh, Psalms is so but Spurgeon, he's always in the commentary that I read. Like people always quote Spurgeon in the commentary because I wish that I had the gift of eloquence that Charles Spurgeon had. Like that man can turn a phrase and break something down that is in a way that's both understandable, convicting, but not hostile. Like he'll tell you exactly how it is, but you can't really fault him because he doesn't seem arrogant. He doesn't seem like he's like, you know, being pretentious or better than you. He's just like, hey, this is how it is. Suck it up. And I mean, he uses a lot of words. But because every time that anybody quotes him, like it's always a really long quote. But he's the man. So that is where I got my first introduction to Spurgeon. And then I just started reading Spurgeon commentary for fun. Because he doesn't actually have a Bible commentary. You just find speeches where he talked about that particular book or chapter of the Bible. And man, I love Spurgeon. He's my favorite commentator, like by far. Plus he's big, like he's a big dude, like loved his cigars. You know, like someone was telling me like in one church they were at, like they tried to get a painting of him, like they tried to cover over like the cigar and the painting of him or whatever, because they're like, well, we don't want to promote this. And Spurgeon's like, look, I'm gonna smoke my cigar. So
he really tells it like it is.
I mean, he does.
It's pretty awesome.
Yeah, Lent wasn't really a concept to me either until later in life. I grew up in a Christian house, but I never heard the word Lent until later.
Same here.
So yeah, my husband was working at a church for a while, and that was the first time I had heard. I was like, oh, Lent, okay, people. That's something that not just Catholics do. So yeah, it's been a more recent thing for me as well. I think this might have been the first time that I more consciously was like, I'm starting something during Lent and I'm going to be carrying through a habit. So for me, like my habit that I was doing was starting with the Bible and with a sermon in the morning, which was a habit that I had fallen out of, and I'm now doing that again. And so it's just really easy to like pick up your phone first thing in the morning, you know, and be like, what's going on in life?
Yeah.
It just taints my day, and you never know what you're gonna be looking at first thing in the day. And it can just like taint the rest of your day. So I've started to put like my phone further away on the nightstand, and then my Bible like right next to me, so that like if I reach out, the first thing I touch is the Bible, and then I'm like, oh, okay, that's what I should do, you know. So this Lent has been really fruitful for me in that way. Just reinvigorating some habits that I need to be doing. And yeah, so I was really glad that we did this.
Yeah, I need to do the same thing. Like I used to like, you know, people, there's worship and prayer, like people are always super good at, and usually it's like reading their word. That's the challenging part, at least for a lot of people I know. I was always good at like making sure I read the word every day, and I have just fallen out of it. I've just gotten in bad habits. Like this last year has just been so challenging. And I've just stopped doing the stuff that I know I need to do. And that has made life more challenging. You know what I mean? Like, and so I need to get in that habit as well. Like I pick up my phone first thing, and I've had problems because I am not a get up early and hang around my house for an hour and a half before I go to work person. I am a get up out the door in 20 minutes person, because I'm, you know, that's how close to work I get up. And so it's really finding that time. Like during the summer, I can do it in the mornings. There's plenty of time. But during the school year, I'm just so tired. Like I'm just like, when am I supposed to find the time? And I have time when I get home. But when I get home, I just don't do it after I'm home.
I'm useless after work.
Seriously. Stupid teaching.
Yep. I hear you. Hi, Carla.
Hi, Carla.
Hey,
you made it.
Yeah, I know. I was like getting ready to log on, and then things started freezing up. And I was like, oh my goodness. Am I lagging or can you tell?
A little bit.
Anyway. Yeah. And then my camera, I don't know what the deal was. I wasn't showing. So anyway, I think I got it all worked out. But yeah.
I'm so glad you made it. Your background's so pretty.
You know what this is? We actually found a little kind of community park close to us, and we just kind of took a little browse through, just walked through it last week. So it was kind of, I was like, oh, this will make a good background. So anyway. But yeah, this is interesting. I like I said, I've never done Lent before. I usually every year I do, like in between Resurrection Sunday and Pentecost, I read through the Psalms. And so you read 3 Psalms a day for 50 days, and then you read through the whole book of Psalms. And so I've done that. And it's always like, you can tell, you kind of gives you a mental reset, I think, for me. And sometimes when I've been in like really kind of a funk mentally, I'll do it another time. Like when I'm under a lot of stress, I'll do that. But Lent is something new. So I know, like with Baptists, like they have like literally no liturgy at all. I mean, so I think there's something about, having
Penny
seasons,
said she's a Baptist
of
too.
times.
Yeah. Sorry to interrupt. Go ahead.
Anyway, that's okay. And Ellen, I did catch you saying that this year's been kind of hard. I felt the same way. I've had a really hard time writing and focusing, and even like I have to be so on schedule, like be determined that I'm going to be on a schedule, because if I get off it anyway, then it just kind of throws me off. And I feel like I'm getting nothing done. Like I was scheduling out the social media images, but we had the spring break, and I was trying to keep everything up, not thinking, okay, I'm taking a break, but this all takes work and time. And so it just like spring break kind of like messed me all up, because I was off my schedule. It's just been it has been a weird year. I mean, just all around, it's been weird. But I really like Spurgeon. I didn't really know that much about him before that. So, but he was kind of the same time as like, because as I was reading, okay, so my Bible study yesterday, I actually included a little bit of a sermon by Spurgeon. It was Commendation for the Steadfast, and he was talking about the church at Philadelphia in the book of Revelation. And some of the things he was saying, I was like, oh my goodness, this sounds so similar to George MacDonald's sermon on faith, the proof, and the unseen. It's like you just do what's in front of you. That's what having faith is. Just doing the thing that's in front of you. And they were all about the same time, right? And G.K. Chesterton's that same sort of, I don't think they were friends though. I don't think I know that they knew each other. But they were all about that same time. I should look that up, I guess. But
and G.K. Chesterton's the one who wrote Orthodoxy, right?
And heresy.
Yeah, Orthodox, heresy. Okay. Yeah.
And heresy.
Evil eugenics. Yeah. And I guess I didn't know this until I read it, but I guess there's a series of Father Brown. That was his fiction.
Yeah.
Like his response to Sherlock Holmes. But
like Dorothy Sayers, he liked his crime fiction.
Yeah.
Okay, so that is so interesting. Okay, so it sounds like Alan is the one who is maybe the most familiar with Spurgeon before we started this. Because when you mentioned that you had read about him in commentaries, it reminded me. I read this commentary called Enduring Word Commentary, and it's free online.
That's what I read. They quote Spurgeon all the time.
Yes, exactly.
Same one.
That reminded me because he quotes it a lot.
All
he quotes a lot of
time.
Spurgeon.
Dave Music.
Yes, yeah, exactly. It's a fantastic commentary. So that was all my experience. But my parents had like a whole library of not a whole library, but a whole bunch of his collected sermons. So I was very.
You can get all the collected sermons in like these little fancy green books on Amazon. All of them. There's like 10.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's so cool.
The one I read was 1814.
The one
the numbers, one? I guess. The one I read, the Commendation to the Steadfast. It's number 1814. So, yeah.
Okay, nice. And so Carly, you read John Ploughman's pictures as well before this, right?
Yeah.
And that I love your quotes so much from that. They were just fabulous.
Yeah, I'm kind of disappointed I didn't finish out the whole thing. I think there were 10 days that I didn't publish something, but there were so many good ones. Like in those last essays, like that's talk. Yeah, this is talk, I think. No. Well, this is from pictures. Promising men are not great favorites if they're not performing men. It's like you have to follow through.
Yes.
And it just reading through this. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say there's two really good documentaries on YouTube about Spurgeon. Through the Eyes of Spurgeon and The People's Preacher, and they're both really, really good.
Cool.
I am looking this up right now. So Through the Eyes of Spurgeon and The People's Preacher, you said?
Yeah, C.H. Spurgeon, The People's Preacher. Those are both really good.
I'll put that in a banner.
I just saw that he wrote an autobiography as well. I was curious about if anybody had read it before or knew anything about it.
He talks about his depression. Spurgeon suffered from depression, where like pretty bad in his life actually, and his wife was like instrumental in like helping him dig out of it, if I recall. But yeah, like there were times he did not want to go out there and talk to people about God. He's like, look, forget him. Like, I don't have time for this. Like, I feel so bad. Can't we all relate to that, right?
I'd be really curious to read the biography sometime.
Derek Prince said he had problems with depression at one point. The other thing about this that it was really, really obvious was, he was kind of like I don't know, probably, I wouldn't say the first celebrity preacher because, there have always been like big names, but he was really well known. He was really prominent. He had a big church, but you could tell that he was, he was a pastor. He spoke to what he saw the issues of his people were. And that's just what you see over and over and over again. You can almost see the lifestyles of his congregants in what he writes in here, because he goes over and over. He's talking about, the drinking, hanging out at the pub, like neglecting the home life. You can just over and over and over. He talks about that.
Yeah. He talks about so many things that like normal people deal with. Like, one quote that I like of his where it's like, don't say you need just a little more to be satisfied, because that just means you're not content, which means if you had double what you have, you wouldn't be satisfied. And I know very few people who don't wrestle with this. Like, I go through periods in my life where I am okay with contentment. I am not in that space right now. I wish I could get back. Like when I was like, I don't know, when my wife and I were dating, like I felt like I was in that zone and everything was good. And now I'm just like, why is my life so terrible? Why do I hate my job? Why does America hate education?
Oh man, let me tell you, I'm not going to get off on this, but just seeing some of the stuff that's been going on I promise. Like what's going, it's just, I mean, the thing about this is kind of my pet peeve. Like, public education is really the thing that has made America great. It's a leveling field for, people who come from disadvantaged situations, and they have a chance. I mean, they're still going to be a little bit behind, but there's a chance for them to, to progress. And that's what's made America great. But now there's like so much money in it, and everybody wants a piece of the pie, and kids are just getting lost. They're just, it's so upsetting to me, because, I used to teach third grade Sunday school, and we're in a district where there's a lot of difference between, there's some people who have a lot, and then there's some people who, are more on the bottom end, like their parents are working multiple jobs, they don't have an education. And so you see that disparity between the different schools in the school district. And I see that but even with that, I see kids coming into our Sunday school. And so we'll have kids from multiple districts or in multiple schools. And some of them, I'm not kidding you, there were some that didn't know what a syllable was. And they can't. There was one little boy, and this is not from a Title I school. This is one that's supposed to be a good school. He did not know not only could he not read in third grade, he didn't know his letters. It's just, it's all about, I don't know, especially in Texas, because, our testing is so, I mean, our state head is like, their goal is to destroy public education and turn it over into private. That's literally what they're trying to do. And it just leaves the kids that, yeah, I'm probably pretty similar. And it just leaves the kids that don't have, and the kids that are in my Sunday school, they have more benefits than some of these that aren't there. They're just profiting at the expense of the kids. They're stealing their future. It's just really upsetting. I mean,
it's a challenge, and we could talk all day about the public education system. Just know that I have kids who graduate my high school, and I'm not at the Title I high school. I'm at a beach school. It's pretty fine. Who can't read. We graduate children who don't know how to read and think we're doing them a favor. So anyway.
I feel like. Well, I feel like Spurgeon kind of actually talks to some issues of the modern day as well, but he doesn't. I don't know.
Talks against greed. He ain't got time for that foolishness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That did come up a lot.
Yeah.
And
yeah, we should go read The Shepherd of Hermasness. Yeah.
What's that one?
A Men with Two Faces. Oh, yeah. I don't know. I mean, just this past year, I just feel like Christians really need to get real with themselves. Like if you don't actually believe, if you don't actually care, then quit even pretending. Just stay home. Just go to a club and get your socialization, but don't even pretend like you follow the one who gave his life for us. Because if you don't care about other people, then you're not doing anybody favors by pretending that you believe something that you obviously don't. That's just
that sounds harsh, but but I'm like, if you don't actually want to live out this life, why do you get up and go to church? Like, sleep in, for the love of humanity. Like, why do you want to waste your time? Like, it doesn't, like, I'm geared up to go to church tomorrow, where my church is gonna have tripled in size overnight, and it's just like, are there that many more Christians like this week than last week? Oh wait, no, it's Cultural Christian Day. Welcome to Easter. And it's I just don't understand what the thing is. It's no longer like, I mean, I live in the South, so that the kind of cultural existence is still here. But in the rest of the country, like, we've really kind of moved past the cultural Christianity thing to where being a Christian, it's like more culturally advantageous to you to just say you're a Christian. We don't really live in that society anymore. And so I think we are seeing a lot more. I think a study just came out that there are more people who do say that they do not attend a church regularly than do. So that it's crossed 50% to the other side now, if that makes sense. I just read that study like a couple of days ago. And I mean, that's just what our culture is now. But I think in that there are a lot fewer pretenders, or a lot fewer like people who are just doing it because you're supposed to. Like, I honestly don't understand going to church on Sunday and then having like, F you effing blah on your car, like as a bumper sticker. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
And then it's just, in God we trust.
That's the thing.
Do we? That's what we're doing?
I know. Yeah, I think that, I mean, on one hand, the Holy Spirit is doing an all call, trying to draw people to him. But if you say that you are, you need to live it. And this one, I think, like with this Spurgeon, he was constantly kicking people in the teeth, about trying to make them, face their issues in the mirror. And like this number 14, men who are down. Nothing makes me more sick of human nature than to see the way in which men treat others when they fall down the ladder of fortune. And there is this, I think we see that's more prevalent in the United States, that there's this idea of possession and acquisition is kind of equal to rightness, and I think we're more, whatever was true then of his time, I think that's more true of us, especially today. And then a little bit later, how aggravating it is when those who knocked you down kick you for not standing up. And that's exactly what it is. I don't know.
That's a good quote.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's
yeah. I mean, I just think sometimes, like, I don't mean this to be Bash Church Day, but I just feel like, if you say you believe what you believe, then you need to live like it. Do you really believe that there is a God who is righteous and holy, who loved us so much that he came and died on the cross and rose again for us? Do you believe that? Do you believe that he's going to come again and judge the living and the dead? Do you believe it? Because if you believe it, then you need to live like it and act like it. There's this thing like, okay, well, it doesn't matter. How are you treating people? That's how you're going to be judged.
And we're not claiming that we're perfect. Like, it's not like, oh, like, look at the Christians, like, thinking they're better than everybody else. No. Like, I am so far away from perfect. Like, oh my God, it's fortunate that I am super like inward examining. Like, I am hypercritical of my own flaws. So, but I think, like, the intent has to be there. Like you're supposed to, like, we're never going to be perfect. Like no man's good, not even one. But like we should be striving. I mean, that's the fruits of the Spirit, right? Like if we really have been transformed inside, fruits of the Spirit. I struggle, like patience is not my fruit of the Spirit. I need to plant a seed of that and have that grow, because it is not like, now some of the other fruits of the Spirit are much more evident in my life, but patience, I have lost much of my patience tree in the last 20 years. And I mean, it sucks.
It seems like, so, they were talking about at the beginning of 2020, it's like, clear vision that was, I don't know if you guys watch any of this, but like some of the prophets, this is what they're saying. And you know what, that was kind of true, but it wasn't, I mean, what it showed was a lot of things that I think that most of us weren't aware of. I don't think that we realized how many problems our country has. I don't think we realized, it just showed a lot of things. I think it highlighted the problems in the church, but I realized, I'm not as nice of a person as I used to think I was. I mean, I have to like literally cut off like even reading some things because I can't, it's such a struggle, like keeping my mouth shut or even saying things in a way, because this is my problem. I read the prophets. Christy's friends with me on Facebook. She's seen, I don't know if she's seen some of the things I posted, but anyway, it's like sometimes I think needs to be said, but I'm thinking, am I saying this in the right way? Because sometimes you can say the right thing and not say it in the right way, and I have a real problem with that. And like this whole thing for Lent, my thing was not to criticize our school board.
That's what you gave up for Lent.
I'm not certain.
You know how hard that is? Okay,
I do it
like
in my class daily.
If we had a grade for Lent, I'm not sure if I would have even passed. I might have maybe a D, but I did like say a lot less than I would have otherwise, because oh man,
I probably would have failed too, but fortunately in my district I can't fail kids, so guess I wouldn't get an F.
You can't fail kids?
Not really. I can't give them lower than a 50 on anything. Anything. Gosh. So it's just like, are you like this kid? What? Like he got a 2. He doesn't know anything. What do you mean I got to give him a 50? No, he got a 2.
I think Victoria can relate to this.
Now, I do it anyway. Like I give them the grade that they deserve until someone says, hey, so I see a grade in this lower than a 50. So could you please like raise that up for me? That'd be great. And then I'm like, whatever. But I put in what they got. This kid, I'm not playing with these children. Like, you do the work and I will give you the grade you deserve. Do not come in here and know nothing and then expect to get a 50 when I had a kid who studied his butt off to earn that 50. These fools. See, that wasn't nice. Listen how unkind that was. But
you both do this speaking truth thing that I love. So I wanted to talk a little bit.
Yes, let us move on.
Yeah, I love it, but I want to hear from Victoria too. So, Victoria, what were some of your favorite moments or quotes from what you read? I know you read Spurgeon.
Spurgeon!
This is my cat, Spurgeon.
Hi,
There's the cat that inspired this read along.
We got a British short hair. We were looking for like a jowly Brit that wasn't Winston Churchill. And I was like, Spurgeon! And it was perfect.
Perfect. Although Winston Churchill is also a wonderful name for
yes, but everyone names their bulldogs after Winston Churchill. There's so many bulldogs named Winston. I had to find something different.
Oh, okay. So Victoria, your floor.
I just wanted to bring up a funny one to me that I don't think is probably very relevant anymore, but the monuments chapter where he's talking about what people put on gravestones and how people are putting like inappropriate poems on gravestones. I was like, I don't think we have that problem anymore. I hope we do. But I found that to be kind of amusing.
That is
Yeah.
That one is we're going to talk a little later about things that might seem a
Okay.
little outdated.
Yeah, that was one that just made me chuckle. But especially the poems that he quoted, they were pretty great.
Oh, I know, right?
Oh, there it is. Okay.
He really had an ear to the ground for that kind of stuff. I feel like, and Dostoevsky did the same thing. He would pick up stuff off the streets, you know, and share it
Right.
in his writings.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Carla.
Oh, I was just gonna say, I just saw it. Have you guys ever read anything by Robert Plougman? He
No.
wrote All I Really Need to Know. I Learned. He used to be one of my favorite authors until I read his novel, and then I just couldn't read him anymore. But he would do. He's not as solid theologically. When I read him, I wasn't. He didn't really know as much about that, but he writes things like this. He tells stories. He was a Unitarian pastor, I think, and he tells stories about like just, people are crazy. Just in general, people are crazy, and tell stories about the church. And that's the kind of thing that he would this one really reminded me of some of his. He lived in Seattle at the time when he first started publishing, and he talks about going to a cemetery and reading gravestones on there. And yeah. So that one reminded me of him.
Yeah, it was just funny because I just didn't know that was an issue in the Victorian times. I didn't know that was a problem. But yeah, other ones that more, I guess, like hit home that I took away something from. Well, I just really enjoyed how practical everything was about. Just like, hey, try again. Like, if trying, getting up in the morning and being thankful for what you have and not complaining and just going about your business. Like, basically the phrase like bloom where you're planted comes to mind. That was a big theme.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of his talks. There were a few that kind of had that same theme. Bloom where you're planted. Don't complain about your lot in life, and don't blame your lot in life for like if you're not where you want to be. Like, don't make excuses for why, oh, I would do this if I only had this upbringing, or insert X, Y, and Z. So I just enjoyed how so practical everything was, and it's really cool how we can take away something that was written hundreds of years ago and it's still applicable. So yeah, I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, and like it sounds like every one of us saw stuff in there like that seems to fit us personally. And it was really funny because I posted a quote yesterday on Instagram about, he who does too much never accomplishes anything or something like that. It like there was comments, basically Victoria's one of them, who was like, why are you calling me out? So it's really funny. He can talk right to you pretty much no matter who you are. Like I'm already like I definitely would like to reread this. Like maybe next Lent, or maybe like something else by Spurgeon. But this one was just so easy to apply. Like
yeah.
If you read one day, you're probably if you read like one every other day, like the schedule was, which I somewhat kept to, but not always. You pretty much would find something every day that would just sort of enrich your life a lot. So
I think this was a good thing to read for Lent. I'm really glad you chose it, Christy, because I don't know about you guys, but I have a problem like wanting to get everything done at once. And sometimes I have a problem pacing. Like I make all these plans and it's like way too much for the amount of time I have. But this was like little bite size, and it was more about being consistent, little things every day. And that's kind of how I think, our faith walk is supposed to be. That's what I always try to remember, about the manna. They had to go to every day. They couldn't just gather it all up, but we're supposed to be going daily rather than just thinking, okay, yeah, now we're good. We always have to be going back.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, I think we are supposed to check in daily with God, at least, if not more regularly. I really admire people who actually remember to pray throughout the day. Because in general, when I sit down to pray, I do the prayer journaling thing, and that really helps. That really helps me focus. Or like if I use this prayer app that I have called Echo, that will help me keep track of everybody's requests.
Yeah.
And like I could even set a timer on it, like pray for 15 minutes, and it'll cycle through my prayer requests. So stuff like that really helps me remember to pray and actually get down and do it. And it'll like send you reminders. Do you want to pray today? You know, but like it would be so much better if just naturally that would happen throughout the day. But in general, part of my problem is I have too much noise coming in all the time for me to actually sit and think. And if I sat and thought, I would do more important things, like, you know, remembering to call my mom, you know, more regularly or something.
Yeah,
Things that are important.
I'm constantly thinking about all the millions of things I have to do, be it teaching, be it booktube, be it reading something. And one of my friends always says that she has to remember to go to the throne before the phone. And that is good advice, because I do not do that. If something makes me mad, first thing I do, boop, 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 boop. Do you know what blah did? Blah, blah. My district makes it impossible for me to teach my class, instead of being like, hey God, so let's have a chat. And this year it's been rough. Like I forget to pray. And sometimes I'm mad. Sometimes I'm mad that my life is what it is. And you know what? I'm not going to pray because I'm mad at God. And, you know, I mean, I'll admit that I'm not proud of it, but sometimes I am. And I don't want to, because what's the point? Or, you know what? Like, man, people's relationships with God is just always weird. Sometimes I'm afraid to pray for the things I want, because I think that if I ask God for it, like if I let him know what I want, he'll like be like Matumbo from those Geico commercials, knock it down. No. Like I'm seriously, as if I could hide it, as if I don't tell him, he doesn't already know.
Yeah, he knows anyways, right?
So I don't pray about the things I want. I keep that here, because if he knows, he'll be like, oh, you can't have that. Oh, no, you'd enjoy that. Here, have some misery instead. I'm like, thanks, God. Thanks for the suffering.
You know, here's the thing about that. Like, I think that it's okay to tell God that, like, just to vent. And I've actually, because that's what David did in a lot of the Psalms. He was venting. And I know, I think for me, like, there have been times, things that I've been really upset about or hurt about, and the times that I vented to God, that was when I had the best outcomes and there were best responses than when I was like, because instead when I go and I like talk to other people about it, or I go on social media, it's like misdirected. So I think it's okay to vent to God and tell him you're upset about something.
He can definitely handle our anger. Like, he definitely can.
Yeah.
But sometimes I want to pray that psalm David prayed that says, smite my enemies, dash their heads and teeth upon the
exactly.
And I'm like, yes, dash their heads and teeth upon the rocks.
Can we give clarification about that? Can we give clarification about that?
Do it.
So that's actually a lament for, because, you know, atheists always go to that one. That's their go-to. But that's a lament after the Jews were taken into captivity. I can't remember which one of the exiles, but that's actually what happened to them. So it's reflecting what happened. I'm just saying that because, like, some people don't know, and that's like
just in
number
case
one atheists go to.
Yeah, don't pray for the destruction of your enemies.
But, you know,
like,
no, actually, you know what? But actually, when you read the Psalms, there's some very David's expressing his frustration, and I can't remember which Psalm this was. I've been trying to go through and break down the Psalms, like the words, you know, in not. I'll either do in the Hebrew or Greek, depending on whether it's Old or New Testament. And there's one of them, and I can't remember. I have to go back and look at my notes, see which one it was. But as I was going through it, it doesn't read like it in the translations. But when I was going through the words, I was like, this is actually a prayer of spiritual warfare. That's what this is. Just the way the words are. So I think that, I don't know. I don't do it nearly as often as I should. And especially, this is the weirdest thing. I've had people who have seriously personal attacks against me, and I was able to pray for them and ask God to forgive them. I don't know what it is about our school district and our school board. I have such a hard time praying for them. They really make me mad. I'm like,
I've never
God,
prayed for them
I want them to
once.
go to jail. Yes. Like, it's weird. It's really weird. And it's not, I know that it's not a personal thing. Like, they're not doing things to, like, offend me personally, but I just have a hard time praying for them. I don't know why.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
my wife,
anyway, but it's okay. You can.
Yeah, my wife and I were just talking recently that the things we struggle with prayer is I struggle with God is good, and my wife struggles with God is powerful. So I think I have no problem believing in the sovereignty and almighty power of God. None. I just think that he uses it to make me miserable a lot of times. And that doesn't, like, I have trouble believing delight yourself in the Lord and he will give you the desires of your heart. Like, I have trouble believing that. My wife does not. She believes God is really good, but for some reason thinks that her agency needs to be, like, she has to do more in order for things she has to help God along the way. Like, oh, I'm not doing enough, and that's why this isn't happening, as opposed to, like, God just being able to tomorrow, like, do that if that is in his will. And so we kind of complement each other on those two things. And it's not that I don't know, like, I know God is good, but knowing and, like, feeling it a lot of times is just really, it's just challenging. Like,
yeah,
why are things the way they are? God, make my life better, please. And he has. Like, again, I'm also really bad at looking behind me at my Ebenezer's. Like, I have the most wonderful wife in the entire world, and, like, I met my wife at church after the worst season of my entire life. My marriage ended. It just completely imploded around me because my wife decided that she should have a bunch of boyfriends, and then left and lived with her boyfriend for 8 months and wouldn't divorce me. And I'm like, how long is this gonna go on? Like, we're just gonna, like, what are we gonna do? And then finally, like, it was over, and I met my wife, and it was just like, it was amazing. Like, so that is evidence of God's goodness. And, like, because I was faithful through the whole time, and I stayed in my word, and I prayed all the time, and, like, that is an Ebenezer that I should, like, look behind to be like, look, evidence of God's faithfulness, evidence of God's goodness. Look at that, Alan. Instead, I'm like, no, I'm tired. I hate my job. I hate Smurfberry pie. That's what I'm like. I'm very unpleasant.
Alan, I just have to say, I obviously, I'm not in your area, so I don't know you or your classes, but I've seen your videos, and I guarantee you're making an impact. You may not see it, but you're making an impact on those kids, and you're making a difference. And so someday they're going to come back to you, and they're going to tell you that. So don't think that what you're doing doesn't have value or that it's not important, but it is. But there was a time when I was just to go back to that, because I actually kind of have issues with both of those, and I have to keep reminding myself of what God's already done. You remind yourself of what he's done, so you trust him. That's the thing about faith. It's not a blind faith or just believing. It's like you see what he's already done, and you trust him for the future because you've seen what he's done in the past. But there was a time when I was going through, it was a pretty dramatic situation. It was a separation. It was really had to separate from a group, and it was a painful thing. And I felt like, for a lot of reasons, it was really, really painful. And but going into it, like, I knew I had to. It was like, up until that point, it was one of the clearest things God had ever told me. Is like, he's like, you can't be a part of this. These are the problems. You can't be a part of this while this is going on. And so we had the split. It was really tough. And then I had a friend who, she and her husband had a business, and they had been going through an issue with a contract that they had, and they were working for a larger company who was withholding money and just pretty much putting them through hell. And so I met her one time. It was like right before Christmas. And I asked her how things were going, and she's like, oh, it's going. I said, oh, is it chaos, confusion, manipulation, and control? And she's like, yep. And I'm like, got that one, know what it is. And so anyway, we just kind of had a little meeting, and then at the end, we prayed together, and just asked God forgave those people that what they were doing and asked God to prayed for them too. And so she used to go to my church, and it's a big church though, so I wouldn't really see her that often. And I ran into her a couple months later, and I was like, how are things going? And she goes, well, I'm pregnant with twins. And I was like, oh, awesome. It wasn't like a planned thing, but I was like, this is just, to me, it was like, this is evidence of, like, this is from God. And he's like, just so you know, it's from me. I'm going to give you a double blessing, just so you know, because this is like, they weren't taking fertility treatments or anything. So there's no twins in the family, nothing. So then a little bit later, it was like a couple months before the twins were born, and they were still going through that issue with this company. I mean, they were literally getting to the point where their company was like going down to nothing because they weren't being paid. It was just a mess. And at the time we were in Bible study, and her husband came in, and they were taking prayer requests at the end, and her husband prayed for the owner of the company and the person that was giving them grief. And it was like, you could tell that he was just, he didn't want to say it, but he said it. Right after that, they found this amazing house. Their story is like so amazing. There was just so much in the birth of the twins, and like right when all the stuff started happening, they had a reconciliation in the family. And then at the end, so it was the head of the company met with them. They did a negotiation. They finally got their payment, and he's like, if you need anything, just come to me. So there was a reconciliation with the head guy, and so they were, to me, it seemed that they had a blessing for being willing to forgive and pray for these people who had seriously harmed them. And I think that's the hardest thing. And that's the whole thing with, I don't know why there's certain people I have a hard time praying for, but, I just try to remember that you're supposed to pray for your enemies, bless those that curse you, you give it to God, you trust him. And that's hard. It's hard, especially when you think that certain people should get a certain thing for what they've done. That's hard. But
yeah, for sure. That's praying for your enemies. It's all over the Bible, but when it's actually something you have to apply, it's hard to sometimes see that in a situation.
I struggle with things that are unjust. Like, I don't like injustice. Like, I can't handle it. Like, it's the one thing guaranteed me to get me stirred up. And I have to constantly be reminded by my wife, vengeance is for the Lord. Like, vengeance is for the Lord. It's not my job to destroy my enemies. As much as I, in my mind, picture a fiery rebellion where I drag them to the center of Paris. And but no, it's not my job. Vengeance is for the Lord. And that's one of the hardest things for me, is not trying to take things in my own hands. I'm better now than I used to be before I was saved. I try not to act while angry, because we all make terrible decisions when we're mad.
My problem is like not typing when angry. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I don't know how much time we have left for this particular question, because there's one more after this one, but I just wanted to give Victoria a chance to talk about it if she has any thoughts on this.
Oh, things that age well in the sermons and things that, oh, well, I mean, I mentioned the gravestone one, which was a very, like, obviously of a certain time, which was kind of funny. And what I found really interesting was that, like, women are mentioned here and there in some of his sermons, and it's usually in a homemaker sense of, like, the women are best suited in the home. And like, I can't hold him to this, like, modern standards, and like that he was a Victorian era man, and he had Victorian era standards of women, right? And like, what is a good wife and like a wife's place. But what I found really interesting was he also like would call out the men a lot too. And I thought that was actually very forward of him, being a man in that time. He would call out the men too and be like, there was a chapter about gossiping and women being blamed for gossiping, and he said, well, actually, like the men gossip just as much. And I really
100%.
I really appreciated that coming from him in the era that he was living in. I thought that was just really more forward thinking than I would have expected from him. And I thought that was pretty cool. There were a few instances of that. So I was surprised at how actually well some of that it did age in ways that I didn't expect.
I saw a Facebook thing talking about like when someone says, like when I say I want a biblical woman, people think I mean, oh, submissive, does what I say. No, I mean willing to drive a tent spike through some guy's head if the need arises. And someone comments, if you can't handle me at my Judges 4 and 5, you don't deserve me at my Proverbs 31. And I was like, yes.
That's awesome.
That's awesome.
And have I mentioned JL's my favorite woman in the Bible? Love JL. I was going to say about that whole section of kind of like, anyway, what you're talking about, Victoria. The thing is, that's true, but kind of what I got from that was he was like, I think Spurgeon had respect for the job that women did in the home, that he valued, like, you know, they're raising the children and taking care of the household, and he saw that as a valuable and worthy thing. And he was, I'd have to go back and look and find it, but he said something like, you can't, you know, I think he was speaking to the men who were being slackers, and like, you can't expect her to go basically earn a living and then make a living. I think he might have actually said that. So, you know, he saw they didn't go out and get the means for them to create the thing that the men weren't doing their part. I think that's what I got.
Yeah.
Yeah, it seems like he could see things from a woman's perspective during that time, which I feel like wasn't always the case with men at that time. But I thought it aged most of this book. I thought it aged extremely well. There was early on the sermon on appearances. I remember there was some talk in the chat like, like we don't really think so much about that now. Like if you show up in our church at your PJs, most people won't look at you weird. They're just glad you're there, you know. But at the same time, I think it is good to dress up and look nice at church. So anyways, I thought it aged extremely well, to be honest with you. Gender relations and everything else. And Rainey feels the same. Rainey was reading along with us on audiobook. And Victoria, you were listening to it too on audiobook, right?
Yeah, I did kind of half and half. I think I read the first half physically, and then I started listening to it. And the audiobook, the one I found wasn't that great. There was it was kind of fun. The narrator would like cough occasionally and like stumble on his words, and they just kept the recording. I thought that was kind of funny. But
that was funny.
Yeah, so the audiobook isn't great, but I kind of went back and forth.
So we're going to have to wrap it up here in a few minutes, but I just wanted to have one more question out there, because whenever I come off of Lent, like last year, I read the book by Boethius, Consolation in Philosophy, and I was like, oh yeah, I want to read more spiritual books this year. And I didn't end up reading like a ton more or anything, but I always feel like really refreshed and ready to do that at the end of Lent. So I was wondering if there's any books that you guys are excited to read about the rest of the year or in the future.
We're currently reading together Disappointed with God, because it's been a rough year. And we're also working our way through You and Me Forever, Francis Chan's book on marriage.
Nice.
Which I'm a big Francis Chan fan. At least I was. I don't know what he's doing right now, but I watch a lot of his old stuff. But yeah, so that's what we're working on currently.
Nice. What about you guys, Carla and Victoria?
Go ahead, Carla.
I have been so overwhelmed with like books that I should have done and not read. I haven't really taken. Oh, okay. So this isn't really a spiritual book as it is so much ethics. I want to read Alistair McIntyre's, he has one on, it's more ethics, but I think it has to, is it on virtue? Have you heard of that, Ellen?
What?
I think that might be it.
What was it
Alistair
called?
McIntyre is his book. I'm not sure if that's the book. But anyway, people quote him and Charles Taylor on ethics and society and stuff. I don't know. I want to read more. I don't know. I don't have like huge plans.
After Virtue.
I had 5 books after Virtue. Yeah. And that's not really spiritual as it is kind of a study of human nature and society.
I feel like you're always reading like spiritual books, Carla. So that question's like for you. It's like I'm already reading 3. What are you talking about, Christy? Are you done with Irenaeus? Or are you still reading Irenaeus?
Yeah, I got done with Irenaeus, but I have all
Okay.
these other books. John Stott's awesome. He's really good. Yeah.
Yes,
I
Peg talks about him on her channel, and now I really want to read him. What about you, Victoria?
There's actually a couple books, and one of them I think you might be interested in buddy reading because you said that one time when I mentioned it.
Yes. What book?
I read the Bonhoeffer biography by Metaxas, and I really want to read now that I read the biography. I really want to read Letters and Papers from Prison.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
So if you want to read, if anyone else wants to read that with me, we could make it a thing.
I have his book Ethics, and it is so dense, but it's really good. That biography is fantastic.
And then also some Timothy Keller. I've read one book by Timothy Keller. I read Counterfeit Gods and really thought it was great. So I kind of want to read another Timothy Keller book at some point if anyone's familiar with him.
Prayer by Tim Keller's good.
Okay.
It's good.
Ooh. Books on prayer really interest me because that's not something that I hear taught about a lot.
Freaking Martin Luther would pray for hours at a time, would sit in his room in the dark and pray for hours. And I'm like, Martin Luther, you must be more Christian than I am. Like, I don't know.
Right?
Like, I don't know how
Who
I would.
even does that?
Like, Martin Luther, he's the man. Quit selling indulgence.
Yeah. Well, on that note, I just wanted to say one more thing, and then we will wrap it up here. In November, we will be doing another Christian nonfiction read-along here. So Victoria and Carla here will be joining me, along with Emma, the Bookish Princess. We're going to be reading Letters to a Diminished Church, Passionate Arguments for the Relevance of Christian Doctrine by Dorothy L. Sayers. And she's one of my top 5 authors. So she's really fantastic. I hope that you guys will join us for that. It should be available everywhere that you buy books. And thank you so much, guys, for joining me today. Everybody in the chat and everybody up here on the panel. This is a great conversation.
Yeah, this was exciting.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever seen anybody so excited about Spurgeon as this little group. So thank you guys. This was really
Give me snark anytime.
Yeah. Oh yeah, the snark. It was strong with this one. So anyways, we're gonna get going. Thank you guys for joining us. I hope you all have a wonderful Easter and that your Lent has been really refreshing and that you get to celebrate safely. Thanks for coming and hanging out with us.
You guys have a great Easter.
Happy Easter.
Bye, everybody.